Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of Mover Signum. We are here at Elverket in Stockholm. And Mover Signum is a format where Sweden-based choreographers can show their work and give us a glimpse of their world of ideas and their processes. So all of you who are watching now, be ready for 30 minutes of speed and movement. Welcome. First of all, I'm going to talk to Björn Säfsten. Welcome to Mover Signum.
Thank you.
And I know that you have been on tour for the last months, I think, with a piece with the ambiguous name I själva verket, which is like translated in fact or in the piece itself. And I know that you have like a big interest in language of movement and also of the spoken language. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Because first, we're going to talk about your general perspective on movement.
Yes, I think I consider myself to be a movement nerd somehow. And actually, since I started working, I've always had like two different entry points. And then I always wanted to intersect them as much as possible. So on the first hand, I'm super curious about like somehow the technical aspects of a movement. So what is it that I need to study and understand to be able to replicate the movement maybe, or to but it can also be like I'm equally interested of more the social side, or so let's say, how do we interpret movements? When does a movement become something like socially coded, or something that we can understand as something cultural, right? And I think it's super intriguing to try to mix these two things as much as possible.
I see. We talked earlier about tools. Repetition. What does that mean in your work? How do you use repetition?
Well, repetition has been somehow like a main focus of mine, maybe the last 6 years or something. And I think I've been using repetition as a kind of vessel, I would say. It's like because I find it's important that when the audience is watching a work, you need to have something that you can identify with, right? So like something that you can connect to. And if you have a thing that you can connect to when watching, then I think I could possibly take you kind of on a transformative journey. And I think repetition is something that most of us have a relationship to. And yes, I've been using it both in like singing and movement, and in a way, it is also what creates a pattern of some kind. And when working with patterns, we also work with different kind of logics, you know? And yeah, I think I love this kind of thing of fooling around with logics, somehow. Could possibly break some type of norm at best, or if not, it could, somehow displace or present movements in ways you haven't seen them before. So.
I see. And I see you there.
Yeah.
I have another question, and let's go back to what I talked about in the beginning, language.
Yeah.
The movement-based language and the written language, or the spoken.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the spoken language.
Yeah.
How do you connect them?
I think when I started to work with spoken language, it was an idea of somehow, because I'm very interested of how to make an overflow of attention for the performer to need to deal with. And like, for example, now, if I need to try to speak and keep on some kind of conversation with you, meanwhile doing another type of practice, it will be very difficult for me. And hopefully that can then kind of create the state of present that maybe could be nice for someone to experience, or at least in the start, it's nice for me, no? And then I also like that spoken language has the possibility of being very concrete and direct. And movement language often tends to be more abstract, maybe. So I think movement can offer some kind of poetic somehow to the spoken language, and where I think choreography can become visible and potential, maybe.
So my next question is, how does a gesture or a movement become meaningful or have a special, loaded with meaning?
I think what's interesting often then is, or at least how I've been working with it, is that I think some of the basic tools in choreography can somehow display how movements can start to present meaning. And I do enjoy a lot that I think dance has this possibility of sliding in and out of meaningfulness, let's say. So if I would do a movement with my hand like this, it might be quite abstract at first. But if I would start to move it in space, or maybe in relationship to you guys in the audience, or you, and I move it in relationship to my own body, it might at times kind of click into things or gestures or situations that you could recognize as a clear thing. And then at other times, it might, somehow fall out of that space and become something much more abstract. And then at other points, of course, whatever those points are, if it's the pointing or if it's a point in space, they could become part also of other types of logics that I could investigate. And so I'm trying, when I'm doing this, I'm trying on one hand to be with the movement and to investigate it. But at the same time, maybe see if it could move into a space of representation or just a certain quality of movement, for example. Could be.
Do you want to come back to the chair?
For sure.
So now I'm curious, in which movement were you now? Were you in or which language? The language of movement or the spoken language? Or did you go in between?
I tried to somehow move in between both the social or cultural language of movements when I was moving. So shifting in between, let's say, maybe something that we recognize as dance and other things that we recognize as something social. And then, of course, the spoken language is like another umbrella on top of these two. And hopefully they can all trigger each other in the practice also. So it's like an outer loop is what I'm trying to create somehow. Yeah.
perfect. I mean, both moving and talking at the same time.
It's an exercise.
It's exercise,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Björn
you.
Säfsten, for this. This was really an experience.
Good. I'm
you.
happy.
And we're going to move forward, and we're going to meet Marit, Shirin, Carolasdotter as our next choreographer. And Marit, Shirin, Carolasdotter has worked with a long-term project called Humans and Soil. And there she explores the relationship to the soil that we walk on, and also the rights that we have to our bodies.
Rulej hushavist, binai chawan, hazeish nu yajanam, heta di tua ejairaitam. Erul kimnali, herad janam, Laila nemani janam, minuini bahanam, bedel chauri.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Marit Shirin. I am a choreographer and dancer. I have indigenous roots from Sápmi and from Kurdistan. And what you just saw is a project named No Friend But the Mountains. And we are dancers from Peru, Venezuela, from Argentina, from Sápmi and Kurdistan. And this is a work in progress project that aims to perform in the future. And we just wanted to share with you our practice of revitalizing indigenous dances. So thank you.
Big thank you to Marit, Shirin, Carolasdotter, and all the performers for that one. Thank you. Now, BamBam Frost. I love your chair. Welcome to Signum.
Thank you.
I read a lot about you, and my first question for you is about transformation and how you work with that. Can you elaborate transformation? What is that to you?
Yes, I'm happy to. I would like to start with saying that when I started making my own pieces, I have been very interested in entertainment history, the role of the entertainer, the power dynamics between entertainer and audience, and how one can play with these, and looking at popular culture, entertainment as an ever-changing, transforming art form in constant dialogue with the current times or the times they arise from. And this way of looking at entertainment history has brought me to wanting to work with transformation as both a creative practice and a dance practice. And I have brought in different materials. It could be popular dances, it can really be anything, and start off with a small movement, constantly asking myself, what could this become? What can it be in a distant future or a parallel universe? What can it become if just I isolate a movement a little bit, and kind of seeing how things can transform, and what pieces from the original dance or something I want to keep, traces from something that was, and what that could be in the future or something like this. So I have been working with transformation both in dance practices but also as dramaturgical tools, and creating, for example, Yes, My Soul, that's just a cascade of proposals basically from this idea of transformation.
So you could say that transformation isn't just a tool, it's also kind of a content, or it kind of works together?
Exactly. Also, transformation as a way of, I think, both in movement but also in association, where I can use transformation as a way to throw myself into, or the audience, into different pools of association and dive into these. And it can really bring me or throw me into something that I couldn't predict before. And I think I like this place of being in something that's it came from something, and through transformation it is the unknown, and I dive into the unknown and see what that could be.
And that brings us to the next question, the unknown, fiction and reality.
Yeah.
Tell me something about fiction and reality.
Yeah, so I realized later, I have been working with fiction ever since my first piece, Sorry, and where we were in a big pink bubble, basically, and I was this is a parallel universe, or this is popular culture of 3,000 years from now, or something like this. So it can be both in the concept, but also just that I like to play superhero, basically, and be okay, so what about this point? What if this point actually has a laser beam, piercing through the wall, opening up the wall? What happens there? Can I pull out something that I can sprinkle on the audience or pick down? So I have this constant fictional space that I move through, and it can also transform the textures in the room, and kind of what a simple movement actually projects. And I think to come back to what I said earlier about just to pick one of the works, Yes, that is just a cascade, really, of fiction and ideas and proposals, and also using fiction as something. Okay, so through fiction, and for example, imagining empathy enhanced, could that be a superpower? Could I, through making a practice of that, propose something else, another way of being together, something I want to see in the world, or just something nice? So I use fiction a lot.
Interesting. You're going to show us something.
I will show a little piece from a piece called Yes that I talked about. And it's just a puzzle. It's just a tiny piece in a big puzzle, an ever-changing landscape.
thank you, BamBam Frost, for this. So now, unfortunately, we have come to the end of these 30 minutes, and I want to thank you all for joining us for this second edition of Signum. Now, make sure that you follow us in our social media to get the new dates for 2023 of Signum. Be sure to follow us. Thank you for this time, and goodbye.